to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do just that is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. I'm basking in the afterglow of the trade deadline, which our producer Colin seemed to be doing as well when I kind of came into the green room. But no, I am doing wonderful. Past week 9, we got midseason awards going on right now. That's what I'm working on right now, currently writing about. But no, doing very, very well. Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, good to see you too. I was not on Football 301 with you this week. I got the week off so that you could have a nice little reunion tour with Robert Mays. So excited to listen to that at some point. But I miss breaking things down with you, so I'm excited about this show today. And we have a packed show on today's program. We have, of course, the Fantasy Film Room with Nate. We're going to dive into the film room and do a little mid-season review show here. It's going to be part 1, biggest lessons and surprises from the first half of the season. Not necessarily like, oh, this unit, the Colts are good. What a surprise. The Colts were good. But it's more so big pictures, big themes, big lessons. And then the second part will be predictions and things we are watching for the second half of the season. Then, as always, we'll preview Thursday Night Football. Interesting game in the AFC West to talk about there. And then the final segment, we'll say goodbye to Nate. Joel Smyth will join the show, and we'll do a little buzz is building on some trending topics and players going on in the fantasy streets right now. But with that, let's run the intro here. Welcome to the Fantasy Film Room. All right, welcome to the Fantasy Film Room presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season with another year of Toyota game day giveaways, from NFL shop gear to even Brock Purdy's favorite Sequoia. Toyota's giving fans a chance to win big, so visit toyota.com/NFL to learn more. All right, as mentioned, for today's Film Room, mid-season review. We are 9 weeks into the season with 9 more weeks to go, so let's get into it here, Nate. Let's talk some big lessons that we have learned from the first half of the year. And usually I let the guests go first, but I'm actually going to take the first one here because my first lesson is Nate Tice was right. Because I'm giving you props here for this one. Because I'm giving you props here for this one, I'm going to go first. Under center offenses and tight end heavy offenses are where it's at right now. And again, I was thinking about this for today's show, and it just has dawned on me that I feel like ever since you got here at Yahoo, one of the first shows that we did together was talking about tight ends. And I think it was the tight end positional preview on the fantasy show a couple years ago, where we're like saying teams are trending more towards heavier tight end sets. And while that might not necessarily mean that a bunch of tight ends are going to go crazy for fantasy, it is going to slowly but surely really re-emphasize different offensive packages and change the way teams are playing. 2 years later, that has turned out to be true. And then on Football 301 this year, you pointed this out in terms, I believe it was this year, and the trends that you were watching for this season. One of mine was like more condensed formations. That was going to be a big talking point. Yours was more under center, like true under center dropbacks. And man, that has really turned out to be like both of those things, just big picture prescient analysis from you, pal, because if we're looking at the top 8 offenses, hey, I'm just saying, top
I'm
8
blushing
offenses,
over here.
please. I'm just listen. I'm just speaking the truth here. This is the lesson learned. So these are the top 8 under center offenses right now in terms of attempts per game out of under center. Rams, Niners, Seahawks, Bears, Lions, Packers, Cowboys. Mentioned this on the show yesterday with Ray. All of those teams and the Chargers and the Bills average more than 51 passing yards per game on under center plays this season. All pretty good offensive ecosystems. All offensive ecosystems we like to invest in for fantasy this season. And of course, the Seahawks kind of hang over all of this discussion because I think they really exemplify what I'm talking about. But I think just the way the league has changed, the way defenses have changed, and the way offenses have kind of responded to that, we've seen these teams really get a big boost in terms of the overall, these are the appealing ecosystems we're looking at right now.
Yeah, it's funny because even on the show, I did miss you yesterday with Robert, and I did his show today. kind of touched on a little bit of this in tight end usage and kind of players that are kind of telling the story of this year's NFL. And the tight end stuff, it's been a talking point since I was a kid. Like, oh, the tight ends create mismatches, but that used to be like tight end. It was like Tony Gonzalez, who was like kind of revolutionary at his time. Like, oh wow, this guy can actually truly be isolated as a receiver. Now it's like the multiple tight end looks, and it's just defenses. We kind of get what you're getting at is responding to what defenses are doing, where it used to be you could dictate defenses. All right, we go 12, you're going to go base, meaning, okay, 4 DBs. And now it is defenses are going, no, we'll just go nickel 100% of the time against that, because we think our body types at slot, the 5th DB, is no longer the 5'9", 180 pounder. It's Kyle Hamilton. It's Brian Branch. Sometimes he's not so much there anymore. It's Amanawari for the Seahawks. 220 pounders, not 180 pounders. And it's just the physics of all. It's just the merging of body types. So now it's just been when every team's going to go out 2 tight ends. Okay, you're going to be in these looks. All right, now we can actually still dictate you in certain ways if we have tight ends that can actually functionally block. And that's the key to all of this. Ideally, you get a guy that can block and receive. But I think teams have been more willing to just even go, Jackson Haas for the Bills, you're actually valuable. Josh Oliver for the Vikings, you're actually valuable to what we do, even if you're not fantasy relevant, but it has repercussions for the rest of the team and what they do as well. And okay, now the second tight end does get opened up to be a real receiver, and it boosts his stats. There's multiple examples of that, but also when you're under center, is typical under center passing plays are down the field. It's just the timing of the play. It's rare that you see under center quick game. And quick game is a 3-step drop back. You actually have seen it more this year, ironically enough, just funnily talk about this, but that's another trend. But it's just that going under center quick game, it's always out of the gun. So if we're going to be under center more, that means it's going to be more play action, which has downfield routes to check down routes that also can usually gain some yards. I think Todd Gurley with the Rams is the best example of it. But also you now get play action passes that are 5 and 7 step. And just by, again, natural timing, that means that's routes 10 yards or more down the field, just by design. And you're just seeing more of that. The intermediate game has kind of come back. I think that's the best way to put it. It's not like the deep ball has just come back. I haven't looked into that. It's the intermediate game. And that makes more sense for under center timing. And also just who you affect by being under center. The linebackers have to honor it because they're expecting run more often. But if you're dropping back from under center with 2 tight ends, just straight drop back, no play action, the linebackers are still honoring it and still getting affected by that. You're adding scissors back to rock, paper, scissors. That's what offenses are doing right now. It's really refreshing because it's traditional offense, but really with modernized, like to what the 2020 football has become.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned like the intermediate game is back. There's a reason I'm constantly yapping about like what are receivers doing on out routes? What are receivers doing on dig routes? Like those kind of intermediate routes on the tree as opposed to just vertical in a short game, which all that stuff obviously matters and everything kind of depends on the receiver archetype and everything. But like these receivers right now, when I did the show with Robert on the Athletic Football Show a couple of weeks ago, that was the whole point of talking about those receivers that are going over the middle of the field in the intermediate area. Those are the best guys in the NFL right now. And that's the thing too, as well. We're talking about these multiple tight end sets and everything. It really has a huge impact on the receiver position itself. And again, the Seahawks are just such a great example of this. And they're one of the most surprising teams in the NFL. So when we're talking about surprising, not to you, I know you were high on the Seahawks. I wish I had been a little higher on some of these players in fantasy. That's for sure. At least one of the players in fantasy.
Yeah. Just listen to your own analysis on it. Like basically.
Yeah, bro, for real. Tell me.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
well,
it.
actually, I did find a clip of I was just looking through old stuff on Instagram for something else, and I found a clip of you and I talking about like right before the season. People are not talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba enough. Like, this guy like is and I was like,
Kubiak offense is hyper fixated on the number one receiver if he's good enough, and we just both said it. We're both in agreement. Like, yeah, there's multiple examples of this. Like, look at these guys. I got them in one league. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I know.
I wish I had him in more, that's for sure, because he's been awesome. And he is kind of instructive in all this from the receiver perspective. Because, while we're talking about these these multiple tight end sets, and obviously they're 31st in the NFL in terms of plays out of 11 personnel. The Seattle Seahawks, only the Steelers, who have only one real wide receiver, are fewer. Like they are the masters of this right now, and it has a real impact on wideouts because I think of the plays on Monday night when, they've got these multiple tight ends, but not all those guys are getting out on the route. So there's only like three players running routes. And exactly, they're in protection. And that number, but you still have to honor those guys as potential players that can get out in the route. So it brings these bodies down into the box. Another team that like you're showing run looks, but they're not even that good of a run team, which again kind of breaks they're actually not. They're actually like a bad run team, and yet they are the most efficient passing team on a points per dropback basis against single high this year. So it's like when they get single high looks, they bring people into the box. They get these isolated matchups with their number one guy, and he's just getting fed over and over again. So it really juices the like per route, targets per route, yards per route, first downs per route, all those like money stats that we really care about from a fantasy perspective. So again, it's not even so much that, the tight ends are back from a scoring perspective. And there are a lot of interesting tight ends, but as the wide receiver guy, it really helps those guys get funneled the looks.
How happy, by the way, are you to see Rashid Shaheed's face on this roster right now? How cool is that going to be? Opening up stuff with JSN and everything with the Seahawks. Actually, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a mixed bag, only because it comes right as I was getting so excited about Torrey Horton. The season break.
No.
So it was a little bit of a but this is another thing too, and I think this is kind of pushing it forward. I do think that the Seahawks team, while they are completely emblematic of this trend that we're talking about right now, they also know that they need to be more than that. They can't just be like, hey, we're the best team out of throwing multiple tight ends. They know they have to be better in terms of these pure drop back pass heavy scenarios. They haven't been in those scripts very often, but when they get to the playoffs, they're going to have to be in those spots. So I think they will. I'm not saying they're about to, be the damn Bengals in terms of 11 personnel usage, but they are going to, I think, play more three receivers because they didn't just get Rashid Shaheed in here to drop him in there and take Torrey Horton and Cooper Kupp when he's healthy, like doing certain things, take those guys completely out of the mix here. So yeah, it is really exciting and will only take all this to another level.
Yeah, it just gives them options, ability to pivot. No, when you were talking about even the yards per route run thing, the team that came to mind is another kind of a epitomized version of this, but more run heavy, was the Derrick Henry, AJ Brown Titans. And that was, AJ Brown was a metric wonder. I mean, eye test wonder if you just watched him. But again, it was just like he wasn't running a ton of routes because of just what the offense was. But the chances he did get are just premium. No, there's not a lot of just empty calories in these types of offenses. It's why I really like them. It's like, no, if you're getting a catch, it's for a first down. It's not for another 2-yard, stick route. It's something that's actually down the field. And really the team that's really been, just to kind of close this thought, that's been kind of like indicative of what's kind of gone on throughout the league is the Bills. Something kind of like been really a thread I've been re-pulling at was this year. Now they're doing a bunch of 2 tight ends and Reggie Gilliam with a fullback on the field. I could just say 2 receivers or fewer looks now. So this year it's about 38%. They're 16th. So they're dead middle and using 2 or fewer receivers on the field. But then if you go back to 2021, which is Brian Daboll's last year, and when I thought they kind of started transitioning away from what they used to be, they ran 21% of their plays with 2 or fewer receivers, which is the second lowest rate in the NFL. They only had 8.7% of their plays had 2 or more tight ends, lowest rate in the NFL. This year, 29% of their plays have 2 or more tight ends. They had 110 plays in 2021 with 0 tight ends. They've had 0 plays this year with 0 tight ends. So it's just that teams figured out like there's a limit to that look, to the spread looks. Unless the Bengals, though, are kind of the one team that comes to mind that pushes that limit. But then, and the Eagles, but they've also our 2 offenses that both been like, whoa, we got to add new layers. Like that's just been the big frustration. It's like there's a limit to everything you can do. Oh,
I was going to say the last 3 weeks, actually, both of those teams are over 60 yards per game in terms of passing yards under center, both of those teams. So
Yeah,
I mean, obviously the Bengals they're a little bit they're a little bit skewed because they're just passing the ball so much, so all of their yards per game stats are going to be up there. But and the Eagles are hitting big plays out of it. But yeah, it's adding the wrinkles, not maybe majoring in it, but as long as you can minor in it right now, that's really, really critical. So that's been one big theme for me. And these are all offenses for the second half for folks out there. Like when you're looking at potential breakouts or things like that, these are some of the teams we can really start to pick from. Again, those are Rams, Niners, Seahawks, Bears, Lions, Packers, Cowboys, Patriots, and of course Chargers, Bills have been. It's good to mention the Bills; they've been up there as well. So, all right, with that, let's get to your first lesson from the first half of the season.
It's great because it's tied into what you're bringing up right now. Excuse me, I'll go sip of water real quick. I'm excited. So, no, you don't have to be a receiver wise because actually you actually brought it up, the conversation you had with Robert as well. Your receiver archetypes are always fascinating to me. What personnel works and what spots works to me fascinates me, and just kind of seeing tight ends is one of those, the receiver body types, the DB body types, linebackers, etc. But with the receivers right now, kind of my bullet point on this is you don't have to be a supreme burner to be explosive. And everything we just talked about, under center, play action, multi-tight end looks, all tied into this because it's the juiciest areas to create explosive plays. Most people think it is the go ball or the post or the deep throw. No, it's the intermediate area that creates yak and catch and run opportunities. It doesn't always have to create a 20-yard big play or a 50-yarder that goes to the house, but just even creating what should have been a 6-yarder to a 14-yarder, those add up over time. So I looked it up on True Media, and they have playing weight. I was able to look about 40 times and pro day times as well. There's 28 receivers this year that have an explosive reception per route run rate of 4.5% or more. It was just a nice round cutoff. Nothing really arbitrary about it, but really, I think top 20 was about 5. It was about 5% or more. So if you even want to say that, the point continues. None of those players ran a sub 4.40 at the combine or pro day. One caveat: Jalen Waddle did not run. So I'm saying that whole every year at the combine, there's a 4.33 guy, a 4.38 guy, a 4.36 guy, a 4.29 guy, and everyone thinks that guy's going to be the guy that just takes it to the house every single time. And it turns out to be a lot more of big, burly, just good players. I know that's the easiest way to say it, but it is something that probably you and Robert did talk about. But just these receiver body types now is that there's a lot of 4.5s in this top 10. So if I just looked at the top 10, JSN is on top, of course. He ran a 4.50 reported pro day time at 197. Puka Nacua ran a 4.57 at 212 pounds. Alec Pierce is a big burner. I will say 4.41 at 211 pounds. Notice a lot of big bodies as well. That's something I'm noticing, Matt Harmon. A lot of big bodies that can run decently, but not extremely fast. Keyshawn Boutte ran a 4.5. He's 197 pounds. Ricky Pearsall is kind of a little bit of an outlier here. 4.41, 189 pounds. There's also the 49ers offense caveat. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4.59, 202 pounds. Justin Jefferson, 4.43, 195, best receiver in football. Marvin Harrison Jr. did not run, but he weighs 220. And actually, his explosive receptions per route run metrics are really good. Devontae Adams, 4.56 to Tetairoa McMillan, 4.48 to 5.55 or 4.55 reported at 212. So just fast enough. And it's just really something I've been I've always been trying to crystallize or just streamline into what I could just say on a guest appearance for 2 sentences, as opposed to me rambling for 5 minutes right here. But I do think that it's just one of these things that what is that type? And it's just a certain combination of size and speed. Speed score is used for running backs, but there's kind of a version of it for receivers as well. It's like, as far along as your body type and everything, but it's just fun to me to look at. You keep going down and down. I think it's DK Metcalf and Garrett Wilson are the first guys that you see that ran a sub 4.4. And I think people just get crazy about 4.43, that's not fast. And it's like, no, you're good. Like you're good. But you just have to be a certain size and a certain speed threshold. So it's just more of like an idea I'm just starting to kind of like pull at a little bit more. But yeah, I just want to kind of lay the evidence out here.
Oh, I mean, there's almost the 40 is overrated in terms of measuring.
That's kind of the way,
there's definitely that take in here as well. Because there's a lot of ways to get explosive plays. And it's funny, like when I'm talking about, and I know we just mentioned Rashid Shaheed, obviously, who I don't know what his 40 time was, but he's obviously one of the fastest players on the field.
Yeah.
You can feel it. But it's funny when you're watching him, speed it's obviously critical, but to me, speed it's not the first thing I need you to check. Like if you're going to be a deep threat in the NFL, if you're going to maybe be a deep threat only, and this is actually going to dovetail perfectly into my next talking point here as well. The good synergy here. I believe Colin moved this up in the outline, so shout out to producer Colin earning his paycheck here. But yeah, it's when you're looking at these players, like I need you to, number one, be able to track the football, win the football in tight coverage, and stack and separate off the line of scrimmage. Those are like things that I need deep threats to do. It's like, yeah, it's great to run fast, but these are the things that really matter. And that's just if we are talking about running go routes and post routes and corner routes. But to your point, these big body guys, and Pierce is a great example of someone that has added those layers into his game this year. Yeah. On out routes, on dig routes over the middle of the field, these deeper in routes, using that body as a way to shield yourself, shield the ball from the defender, and just put that there. And like if you have good hands, that makes you a credible downfield explosive player more so than just how fast can you run.
Yeah, it's the classic game speed versus time speed thing. It's just I've always just tried to think of like what is kind of like the ideal receiver. I mean, because there's just so many flavors and so many ways that they're used, and it's just so cool when I watch this Rams team, because that was one thing I had. It was like, are you going to feel a little tight? Like, you know, I know Tutu Atwell is fast, but like, isn't this offense going to feel tight? And then you watch it, it's like, no, it's because that area between 10 and 20 yards, they shred. Yeah. And then they got these big guys that are fluid athletes. And of course, Devontae Adams is an all-timer. Puka Nacua is just doing incredible stuff. So it's just kind of fun to watch that and become just maybe even JSN, I guess, in this offense, become a little bit of a different version than maybe I was even expecting, you know? So it's just been something I've been really kind of, I'm fascinated by it because I think it's really cool. It's like a good direction I think the football is going. And I want to just see more of these types of guys. They're just better. I'm using all old coaching adages here, but it's like they're just good football players, and it's cool to see them create these big plays despite not being maybe in your head what an ideal body type is.
Yeah, and I mean, even this is kind of why I started talking about the whole sacrificial X receiver thing, is because even your player to stretch the defense out doesn't have to be your first, second, or even third target. It's just somebody that's in there to run the love of the game routes. And the Saints, I know they just traded Shaheed, but they've been having Brandon Cooks be the guy that truly stretches the defense out, and he's being targeted on under 10% of his routes. He's literally there to just run the love of the game routes and open up space for Olave and Shaheed and these guys. And you kind of need like that player does not need to be a main focal point of your offense, but he opens up that 10 to 19 yard area. And you just think about it. Sometimes I just think teams and fans and observers, everybody overvalues speed in terms of actual like execution on intermediate and deep passes, which again dovetails perfectly to my next lesson here. To me, the speedy outside receiver who is in my opinion, an above average or like slightly above average to average separator is going to lose out to the big slot receiver every single time. And I have three really concrete examples of that, of guys that have just been completely borderline useless in fantasy this year. Mm-hmm. Xavier Worthy versus Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy is wide receiver 54 in points per game right now. Rashee Rice is wide receiver 1. Small sample size, but still. Jamison Williams is wide receiver 49 this year. Amon-Ra St. Brown is wide receiver 4 in points per game. That's not a small sample size. That's been the whole year. Darnell Mooney, this is slightly unfair because I know Mooney's been dealing with injuries, but Darnell Mooney is wide receiver 100 in points per game this year. Drake London is wide receiver 6. And this just makes sense for a lot of different reasons here. Again, I think that Worthy, J-Mo, and Mooney are all guys I think are okay, but are a little bit overvalued, especially obviously J-Mo and Worthy, a little bit overvalued reputation-wise because of their pure speed. And shoot, even J-Mo is a good example of a guy that they've had him run more go routes this year, and it's really cratered his production, to your point about that's not always how you access explosive plays. But it's just like these guys are, these big slot players are easier to get the football to. They're more diverse in their skill set and what they can do. they're just naturally high target, high volume players. And I'm always concerned about these speedier kind of, again, I don't think Worthy or JMO are these high end full field separators either. They're really good at what they do in certain areas, but the holes in their game do not lend them to being these consistent high volume target players on a week to week or even season to season basis, at least where they are right now. Worthy's obviously a young player. He can continue to grow, but JMO's on his second contract. Darnell Mooney's on his second team. So these guys, to always, like when we're drafting, they're going to lose out to these archetype of players right now. And I kind of think that's something that's going to hold going forward.
It gets into everything with like evals and personnel evals and grading and everything. Is the more you can do. You said it. The more you can do. Oh, they're good at the things they do well, but that's just exactly how coaches view them. And that's even, tying into points that we've brought up already in the show, is that once teams realize, oh, we have a tight end that can functionally do the things that the slot can do receiving wise, and he's better a blocker. All right, what's the point of having that guy on the field? Like, it's getting your best five out there. And so if always our best five, and again, this happens as season goes along, is you have tendencies that start to form. If so-and-so is on the field and he's at this spot, he's running this route. If so-and-so is on the field at this spot, he's at this route. He's only lining up in these two spots, so we know we can do this. That's what happens. And that's why you have to be a god if you're a role player to be valid to be on the field a lot. When I say a role player, just you're doing this one thing really well. Okay, we got to figure out ways to get him on the field just because of that. But if you're like pretty good, like teams will be like, okay, we'll take, or just like good, like say scouting scale of 6 out of 8. All right, we'll take the guy that's a 5 out of 8 because he can do the other thing 5 out of 8, and you're a 2 out of 8 in blocking. Or even receiver value from the scouting system I know, which was the Patriots' old system, is that they would have like a grade. Like 6.3 is a slot-only receiver. I would say maybe a Josh Downs. Maybe that's like a good little example in my head. Okay, but then a 6.6, which is significantly higher. I'm talking like 6.3 is probably like a round 3 grade, give or take. 6.6, now we're talking round 2. That's Michael Pittman, I would say. A guy that can go outside, inside, and it can be a starting receiver at either spot. And that creates more value. And then an outside only receiver that maybe can't line up in the slot. I'm trying to think of like a burner. Tyquan Thornton, something like that.
Booty
he would be
has been this guy.
Keyshawn Booty. Yeah. Somebody. Yeah. Apparently he's a burner.
AD Mitchell. If we're sticking on Colts receivers.
AD Mitchell. There we go. AD Mitchell. AD Mitchell would be in between the slot. Yeah, I know, right? Which actually I might talk about a little bit. AD Mitchell is, if you're outside only, you're in between slot only and the guy that can play both ways outside and inside. And so just because the value of that is how many snaps you impact. And this gets into, we can even stretch this conversation further into what position ranks over what position in value anyways when you're building a team. Mm-hmm. That's why I've always valued, if you really want to get into it, quarterbacks, of course, at the top, but then who's the first guy that can stop a quarterback, a pass rusher? Who's the first guy to block a pass rusher, an offensive lineman? All right, everything goes well. Who's the ball to go to? The receiver. Who defends the receiver? The corner. That's my positional value. Quarterback, pass rusher, offensive lineman, receiver, corner. But when getting into that, it's because of snaps impacted. Those guys are on the field the most snaps. And that's why the best receivers, and even getting into our conversation with tight ends we've had multiple times, why tight ends that can be good, AJ Barner, that can be a blocker, Theo Johnson. These guys are more likely for a breakout down the road. Tucker Kraft is probably the ultimate example because they have no excuse to take him off the field. Yeah, I know, RIP. Actually, I'm going to bring up that too later. But those guys, that's why they leads to more successes because they're not off the field. And so that means they get more chances. Long-winded way to say, though, that it's like the more you can do, as coaches feel the same way, and then fantasy value kind of comes from that as well.
Yeah, it's the more you can do, and so then you're on the field, and also just when your team goes into chaos, that's like when the Lions are running pure last season, Jameson Williams is crushing it. But then this year, it's not that they've been bad, but the run game's a little bit less efficient. They dealt with some injuries up front. Obviously, he's transitioned up front, new coordinator, and it's just more footballs to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Falcons are the best example. They've had certainly a lot of chaos this year, and then they get truly the stats bear it out, as I've said on the show consistently the last 2 weeks. just Drake London, push the Drake London button, and those are their best
over
games
and over and over
again when they do that. So
I know.
Again, that's just something to keep in mind when we're looking at receiver archetypes. I wish there was a way to truly quantify these guys. But
I know.
I've researched receivers for like 12 years now, and I just don't think there is. So
it's just how you keep
something
it in
you kind of
head.
have to.
It's head
Exactly.
accounting. I mean, that's the best way to put it. And it's how you value it. And again, you're not always going to be right. There's certain, like Josh Downs is a guy that I would value lower, but he's so freaking good at being a slot only guy that he has value because he's so good at it. But and like that kind of gets into further discussions on it too. Also, Drake London. Drake London might have the most universal appeal of any player in football 301. By the way, between me, you, and Chuck.
Yeah.
Like Drake London he's on the all football 301, like just locked in all pro team. Just universal appeal from all three of us.
Hey, and I think there's some pretty good reasons for that. All right, real quick, you've got one more lesson to throw out here, and I think this will kind of like put a loop on this change that we're talking about here.
Yeah, this is just something I anecdotally noted kind of a couple of weeks ago, and then I just had looked into the stats today, and it's kind of it's more interesting to me than anything. And I think maybe in fantasy reasons, maybe PPR especially, throwing to running backs is just down league wide, just down rate wise, it's down production wise, efficiency wise. I can look up in True Media back to 2013, but target share going to running backs has been going down league wide since 2017. Which was the high point, which is 21.2%. It was 16.6% last year, 17% this year. So it's dropped. I mean, that's significant. That's, 5%. That's 1 out of 20 throws. So when you're just talking at that rate, but then tied for the lowest rate of first downs per route, second lowest success rate on throws to running backs. It says 2013, second lowest success rate per route to running backs, tied for lowest explosives per route, second lowest rate of completions that go for 10 or more yards, third lowest yards per route, lowest rate of first downs a game, tied for lowest net yards per attempt. So it's just in every which way, it's just gone down. I have, a few theories on that, but that's just because receivers have gotten better and tight ends. The whole tight end discussion is part of this as well. Yeah. I mean, they're just eating up the same routes and stuff. Like, let's just have a running back or receiver run instead of a running back. I just think it's interesting to me because running backs have never been better at catching the ball. So you would think it would be inverse of what's happening. And so I think that's just it's just a quirk. It's just a paradox. They've gotten better at it, but so have everybody else. So they just go, let's go to the guys that they're professional pass catchers, and defenses have gotten way, way better at knowing what the running back kind of routes are, choice routes, play action stuff, just those types of things as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. The choice routes, like there's so many receivers that are great at running those. Why would you just not rather have the guy who is a receiver doing it? And
yeah, I'd rather have Travis Hunter run
I do think
than Tootin,
Travis Etienne or whatever. Yeah, I mean, to me, there's two kind of windfalls of this. One, I do think that it's definitely the depth of the receiver position is so good, and that's just why I'm always on the radar. This is always on my radar. Like, how is that expressed in the stats? Is it number one, receivers are going to produce less because the depth of position is so good? Probably not at the high levels. But yeah, the running backs have definitely been the ones to lose that. And then the fallout from that from a fantasy standpoint is that the guys that do catch passes still are at an unbelievable premium. Christian McCaffrey obviously has been doing he's one of the outliers still. Bijan Robinson. They throw the ball to Drake London 14 times. They threw it to him 10 in the last game. Like those, even as the Falcons run game has kind of struggled the last couple weeks, he's been able to survive because of that receiving workload. So that just makes those guys even more valuable. And I also think that the kind of PPR scam running back, the James Whites of old or the Dion Lewis of old, always Patriots backs, those guys are going to become less and less important going forward. It's like, those guys are going to become, instead of that, it's like LaQuint Allen, a guy who's on, or Jeremy McNichols, the guys who are these snap eaters, but might go games and games and games without getting targets. And that really does matter a lot from a fantasy standpoint on the margins when we're looking at the running back position. I'm telling you, like I do my running back rankings right now. I get to 26, 27. It's like, if you're starting this guy, you're banged. Okay, your team, your season stinks. Like you're at that position, and I know that because I have to do it on a few of these teams. So I think that kind of closes the loop on this sort of offensive lessons learned in the first half of the season. A lot of good stuff there. We're going to use some of that as we transition to the second segment when we talk about things to watch for the second half of the year. We will get into that right after this quick break. All right, we're back. We're continuing our mid-season review, but now we're going to kind of try to spin this thing forward here a little bit. Look for some surprises, predictions, maybe things we're watching in the second half of the year. Nate, instead of just telling you how smart you are, I'll let you go first in this part of the segment.
Yeah, I know. I kind of took this in a few different ways because it was like a little bit of a fantasy prediction, just also some stuff I just wanted to talk about with you. So that was also a part of an excuse to do this with, because I can't just text you or hit you up. I just no, let's wait until we record a podcast and get paid for it.
Well, I'm a terrible texter, so I can't get my thoughts
worst,
out.
Have you noticed? Yeah. I'm awful. I read a lot of texts. Doesn't mean I reply to a lot, but no. But Kyle Monangai, this will be my first one. Kyle Monangai, who I've mentioned on the show, I feel like every week, is going to be a league winner in the second half of the year.
All right.
Just straight up. I mean, early returns are pretty good on this, but the Bears, this is a mix of the Bears schedule going forward, his own skill set, what the Bears run game has become, because this is a top 10 offense and really a top 3 or 4 run game. And even just not even just cutting off at certain splits after week 2, after week 3, which you can do and they boost up, but just full season stats. Like, this is a good offense right now, at the very least, an above average offense. They have gone against the second easiest schedule, but this is a fantasy show. So that's a good thing. Because we want those numbers juiced up.
We don't care.
Yeah, I know, right? That's good. But
we're not trying to prove anything. We're not trying to prove anything in the future. We're just trying to get the points, get the results are all that matters.
Get them up.
That's all that matters.
Talk a little bit, get a couple of results right. We're good. No, but the Bears, full season, most explosive offense in the NFL. No caveats, nothing. The most explosive offense, 14.1%, which is exceptional. They're 4th in rushing success rate full season, behind the Colts, the Bills, who are unbelievable run games, the Commanders, which have had a really cool run game, amongst the injuries, and then the Bears. 1st in explosive run rate, 7th explosive play rate, or pass rate, 11th in EPA per play, 8th in EPA per rush, 10th in EPA per drop back. It's an explosive offense. It's an offense that hunts for those. Ben Johnson wants explosives. He made a joke about it once in an interview or a press conference where they asked about the tush push. And he said, how many tush pushes have you seen go for an explosive? And the reporter was like, but he gets first downs. And he's like, yeah, I like explosives better. And it was just like amazing. It was like a great answer. And it's like, yeah, me too. Tap nose. Me too, buddy. I just think watching this run game, it's cooking. Yes, they've gone against some easy defenses, but it's very sound. And now they got Monangai, who actually can make a guy miss at the second level. And I think that even against a Bengals defense, that is shoddy. It's a very bad defense. Do not get me wrong. That's the thing. That's a sign of a good offense. They make a bad defense look like a bad defense. I know I sound simplistic saying that, but that is important to growth of it as a team. But I think Caleb stuff is the Caleb stuff, and I do think there are good signs there. But run game wise, this is a top 5 run game. Even getting in Benedict at left tackle. He's a little iffy in pass pro, but he's a good run. Yeah, but he's a good run blocker. So we're just talking about Monangai. That is good. So now you have a good offensive line. Colson Loveland, who's a good blocking tight end already as a rookie. We'll see. Cole Kmet's got a concussion, so we'll see. But 2 tight ends that can block. Monangai, who is much better fit for this offense. Roman Dunze, who will dig the hell out of a safety. God, I think this run game is going to keep churning. I'm maybe not best in the league or top 3 or anything like that, but I feel like a firm top 6 run game against a pretty easy slate of defenses, including the 32nd ranked defense, according to DVOA, against the run this week. So yeah, I'm feeling good about the Bears offense and the Bears run game. Kyle Monangai, if DeAndre Swift still battles this groin, man, I think this can be a very consistent thing for them.
I'm so glad you brought this up. One, I feel like we talk about the Bears so much, and I couldn't care less. So I couldn't care less about the Bears, other than I care everything that happens to Roman Dunze I care about. But otherwise, I couldn't really care less about the Bears. But I'm invested.
You and his dad.
Of the Dunze thing. Yeah. Don't even get me started on that. It's the team account had to post a video of how selfless he was because of his dad's tweets. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable stuff. Anyways, we're all trying to be better than our fathers, right? Our fathers are hoping to make us better men than they were, and they're hoping to be better to us than our fathers were than their fathers were to them. Anyways, leave it at that. Leave it at that. Anyways, but I feel like we talked about the Bears a lot. But I'm so glad you brought up Theo Benedict, because he does drive me crazy from a pass pro standpoint sometimes because I just don't love how Caleb Williams is in creation mode right now and chaos mode all that much. And when he gets that blindside pressure, that's when he goes on, I think, into his worst. He feels the pressure well, but I just think how he responds to it drives me nuts a little bit sometimes. But Benedict is awesome as a run blocker. Truly a plus run blocker. And all these receivers are, especially Odunze. I know you guys didn't get any fantasy points last week from his run blocks, but he was indeed selfless and blocking his ass off, as I kind of think they set him up to be a decoy in that game. And that leads me to my point that I think this is such a good time to bring this up because like this is the time to buy these Bears right now, but before they really get rolling here.
That's the overarching point.
Yes. Buy high on Monungai. Buy on Colson Loveland, despite, I know he played the Bengals last week. The Bengals are abhorrent at defending tight end, but it's a good time to buy him. If you can get Rome Odunze as a buy low right now after the 0 spot, 100% do that because this is how Ben Johnson built it in Detroit. It was let's build the run game first, and then let's build the pass game off that. And like, Nate, how long do you think it takes defenses to catch up to that? Because I think once they get this run game rolling, we talk about the under center passing that they're doing right now. And just like, how long do you think that takes it then? Like, once they have this good run game, when are defense is going to start to account for that so then they can take advantage of the matchups through the air?
You're starting to feel it. Again, it's the Bengals defense was so bad, but even the Ravens game, you could see how top down they played. And it was just as far as where their eyes went. So they honored the run. Maybe that's the best way I could put it. And so you're already starting to feel it, already starting to see it. And what you said, the under center stuff is significant. I mean, it went from 28.8% last year for Caleb. Now it's over 46%. So it's one of the highest rates in the league. Play action rate doubled 16% to 30%. Throws over the middle have gone up. Throws of 10 or more air yards have gone up. So this actually brings us back to our first point, the under center stuff. When you're in this type of offense, it is a chunk heavy offense. Again, explosives. That is great for fantasy. That is great, because who gets the chunk plays? These guys. So you've seen it in spurts, and you see their opening drives have been really good. So that's what it was my original joke about Ben Johnson before they kind of really got rolling, was he was the opening script wonder and he would just fall off from that. And then he became the sniper, because then it was like, all right, I want to compliment this guy. So I can't be the opening script wonder. That sounds like I'm knocking him. But I think now when you watch it, it's like, that's what this idealized version of this offense is. It's like when they have those drives and it's just chunk, gadget play, chunk, run play. Like the Bengals game, of course, was routes on air, but that's what should be looking like. And I don't know. I put it this way. I don't see a reason for it to slow down as far as like, I think they have a total bottom out week, because the O-line is pretty good right now. They just have some communication stuff they'll clean up, and it's gotten better every single week. So I think the short answer to your question, though, is that we're already starting to feel it, and I think it still will start happening as the year goes along.
Yeah, it just also makes me think about how good 2026 is going to be for this team. That's really going to be a time for this offense to really take flight here. This actually defense. Can bring me to
Carnival team.
Definitely can be one of those carnival teams. That is for sure. This also brings me to one of mine for the second half of the season, which is I think the Carolina Panthers are about to take the game back to 1998. Remember when John Gruden got hired and he was like, I'm going to take the game back to 1998, and everybody made fun of him. And look, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to laugh at John Gruden, but but I do think the Carolina Panthers are actually going to do that right now. I mean, this team, I just rewatched their game against the Packers, and I was like, why would this team ever attempt a forward pass ever again? That's being a little facetious, but their run game is outrageous right now. I mean, we talked about it on this show a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. I don't know, but just
we went 25 minutes on the
Panthers run game. Shout out to the people in the comments. I saw one person, I think Colin sent this to me. One person replied, 25 minutes on the Panthers backfield, and then everybody else who then commented on that is like, hell yeah, needed more.
Thank you. Yeah,
we love you guys. shout out to the commenters. Like and subscribe. You know the whole deal. This is a YouTube show, but this team, like, even as they are constantly cycling in new offensive linemen because guys keep getting hurt, this run game continues to go. I think Dave Canales and Brad Idzik are cooking as from a designed run game perspective, and Rico Dowdle is just the most explosive runner in the NFL. I mean, he's awesome.
Yep.
He's like 20 whenever he starts games, 20 fantasy points, write it in pencil, like let's go. And so he's been incredible. I think as long as he's healthy, and I know he's kind of got some maintenance injuries right now, that's obviously something to keep an eye on. But man, he's a running back one every single week. I mean, to crush that matchup against the Packers is such a high state of praise for what they have been doing lately. And I am at some point interested to see if this can, what we talked about with the Bears, but maybe a diet version of that because of some of the different players here involved. Can this ever bring something into the passing game where they are able to throw out of these heavy sets and become more efficient? I keep saying my thoughts on Bryce Young are kind of like a moving target. I'm almost, I remember you used to call yourself like Brock Gnostic in terms of Brock Purdy.
Yeah, right.
I'm like I'm a Bryce like a Bryce Gnostic. I don't know. I don't want to have like a strong take one way or another, but I do want more from the passing game. I want more from everybody involved here. Like let's just kind of put it like that.
Yeah, no, I'll come up with some pun. I love a good pun. No, but
I'll let you do that. I'm no good at that.
Where your brain went though about like, okay, if they can continue kind of how this run game is going, because I actually had some thoughts on this anyways, just for this week. But they have the third hardest schedule per DVOA going forward. It's not like the craziest thing you've ever seen, but it is third. But I looked this up. As Joe Gilbert, their offensive line coach, I think is very good. Charles actually gave him assistant coach of the year last year. Even going against the Packers, this is pass game wise, but Ike Ekwonu, the left tackle, he gave up 0 pressures against Micah Parsons on 13 snaps. It's the first time anyone's pitched a shutout against Parsons. So that's like, all right, those players are playing well. Yeah, I know. I finally I got to share that piece of that tidbit I've had since Sunday night. I just haven't been able to find a place to jam it in somewhere. But they're looking up like this. It's a real thing because now this is 2 years. This is their philosophy. It's how their whole offense is structured because I think they know what their pass game is, and I think they're just being nice. The early down stats right now, they're 5th in stuff rate, gains of 0 yards or TFL, 7th in success rate, 8th in EPA per rush. Their explosive run rate is shot through the roof with Dowdle, some of the defenses they got through as well. But again, this is a bad defense beater. Their run game is, all right, you're not going to be sound against us. We're going to make you look like that Cowboys game. And on early downs for their passing game, 29th in EPA per dropback, 23rd in explosive passes, 29th in air yards per target. They run the ball on 61.8% of their first downs. It's the second highest rate in the NFL. And it's one of those where I go, I get it. Yeah. But maybe we crank it up to 65 or 66%. But it is a run heavy offense, but it's good. It's efficient. They get explosives now. So I'm glad he brought this up because I do think they're going to go back to 1998. I'd even say 1974. I would say just a couple of years after the merger, that's where they're going to go back. The Chiefs ran the wing T in the NFL in the mid 70s for like a year. I think that's what the Panthers might look like for the second half of the year.
Definitely a bummer for like Tedero McMillan for the second half of the year bounce or like shoot up for a rookie. It's
yeah, I'm not getting any offensive rookie year votes for him. No, those count stats.
He's just not going to have the production and like to be fair, he's also had some same thing with Ramadunze. Like he's had some drops and mistakes in contested situations, which you hope that like evens itself out over the course of his career. And I think it probably will, but it's just like, yeah, you need to be perfect. Whereas with Rome, they're throwing the ball to him so much that, sorry, James, they are throwing the ball to him so much that like there's a margin for error there if he has a mistake. Whereas, yeah, there's like no margin for error for a receiver in this offense because of the way the passing game is right now. But I am at least, again, I want to be open to the idea that the passing game can get a little better if defenses start to over-index on this outrageous run game. But we'll see. That's a little bit more TBD. All right, give me another one.
A little dash of Coker in there. That might help out a little bit. Dash, little bump.
Let's do it. A little bump of Coker. That'd be great. All right, give me another one of yours that you're watching.
I was just looking up some McMillan stats too, but no, I would say this is more just tying what happened this week. Is I really do think there's going to be a boost effect of trades that will be kind of noticeable, real football wise, but also fantasy wise. Jacoby Myers to the Jaguars, wasn't on my bingo card, but Travis Hunter getting hurt kind of probably changed some things. But also I like it, I think, just because it's kind of the things that Parker Washington does, but just kind of like, I don't know, maybe a little bit better. Just a reliable guy, slot outside, actually doesn't have a high drop rate. I think will be interesting. But I also think fantasy wise, I'm keeping my eye on it because it's just like, all right, I think he's going to get a lot of value touches. There's a lot of that's why there's been so many frustrating moments in this Jags offense and those drops and everything, and a couple Trevor misses and stuff, is that they're going to open spots and great opportunities. The guy's just not catching the ball, or the ball's getting missed. So they're there if the guy catches the ball, and Myers can take advantage of that. Like, and we've talked about Jacoby Myers plenty of times, kind of know what he is, but I really like this one. So it's one of those that, like, fantasy wise, I actually think will be very relevant in the second half of the year. But even the team he's leaving, the Raiders, obviously Brock Bowers, pretty good, huh? But Bash
helps.
Trey Tucker, great opportunities for him. That's as far as I'm going to go into their roster. Michael Mayer, I guess, gets a shout out as well. But it's not great. But there's some moments with this Raiders offense if they go against, not great defenses. And I don't know, maybe that streamlines some things. I know they're probably not happy about it, but maybe it streamlines some things. And there's other stuff as well. I think there's going to be a little Alec Pierce quasi breakout. I think he's already in the middle of it, but I think that's real. Maybe that's my underlying point with it. I think it's very real. And then I think AD Mitchell is going to have some spike weeks in the back half of the year because he's kind of a spike week guy. And who else is stopping him? Who else is going to be on that team that's going to be in his way to get some touches with the Jets? So I just kind of I do think these trades are going to have a positive impact in different ways with all the teams that got affected by it.
Yeah. Speaking of your boy, Alec Pierce, I was joking with James Coe today that I feel like I've had such a wandering eye with the Colts receivers. I started as a huge Michael Pittman guy, and then I really liked Alec Pierce when he got drafted, and then I was like, oh my God, and then I'm back to Pittman, and then they get Josh Downs, and then now I'm kind of back on Pierce again. It's a little bit of a wandering eye, which just goes to show all these guys are good. By the way, this week he is second in the NFL in yards per out run against single high. The Falcons run single high according to Fantasy Points data. 73%.
He's too fast for
their
them.
Plays. Yeah,
he's too fast.
Yeah, he's gonna
start
Alec Pierce this week. That's my analysis. Start Alec Pierce this week in fantasy. Yes, start Alec Pierce in fantasy. The other thing I wanted to mention about the AD Mitchell thing, and we didn't talk about this too much yesterday because I don't know if I'm picking him up in like seasonal redraft leagues, but I wrote him up today for my charting notebook for reception perception, and like he's kind of exactly what the Jets need. I only want him doing one thing, just put him on the boundary, stick him on the numbers, and run straight line routes. I don't want him. I never want him facing zone coverage. I never want him running a bunch of
his shoulders should never
routes.
Turn. They should go north and south. Run real fast or stop and run right backwards. Yeah,
exactly right. Curls against man coverage. That's all I wanted to do. Which, by the way, that's kind of what they need in this. I mean, they need anything in the Jets receiver room because it's so bad besides Garrett Wilson. But Garrett Wilson's in that fun little move around role right now. And let's get AD Mitchell doing that. And I think that would make a lot of sense here. So I like your mention of the AD Mitchell potential spike weeks. Just something to watch for maybe dynasty things of that nature. Let's get one more in here. And I'm just going to point out that we're going to get to a point here where we're going to start crossing teams off in the second half of the season. I know from a fantasy standpoint, we can't just abandon everybody because you got to make start sit decisions, whatever. But teams that I'm pretty much about to cross off here, Washington because of no Jaden Daniels, and it's just just a complete disaster season. Yeah, Tennessee. I mean, now that Tony Pollard is going to be on the team that kind of blocks Tajay Spears from ever fully being something, I don't even know. Calvin Ridley is coming. Is he going to come back to this team? Are you going to play him?
I don't think they even want him.
Did they? Yeah. Do they want him? Does he want to be there? I have no idea. Chimere Dike has been interesting, but it's a day 3 rookie that on a team that's rookie quarterback. I don't know. Saints. It's just how many times can we get the ball to Chris Olave, and I guess that's all I really care about. Alvin Kamara didn't even have a fantasy point last week. It was 0.2 or something. They're doing the Taysom Hill stuff in the year 2025. Yeah. They're doing Taysom Hill stuff in 2025. He's leading the team in rushing. I can't believe it. And then lastly, Giants. After the Tyron Tracy rug pull last week, where it's just Like, oh yeah, last year they used Tyron Tracy as the
They
lead
loved
back,
him.
and they liked him, right? Like, yeah, they played him over Devin Singletary, but maybe they
Yeah.
were just so mad at him, because he's not Cam Scatterboo. It's like, we're not even going to play this guy. They're going to play Devin Singletary over him. So yeah, that's one where the receiver room is nothing. I don't know if Jackson Dart can continue to get 20 fantasy points while there is nothing going forward, but we'll see, man. I don't know. That one's just worth. These are teams that are kind of, we're going to get to a point where we're crossing
It's
teams.
the factor of
These are
sadness.
those. It is the factor of sadness. All of these teams. So those are kind of the ones on my radar is the potential sinking ships where there's just nothing to pluck from here. I actually, real quick before we go to our last break, you have one more here that I want to hear from you about because you are, this podcast, one of our flagship players was Tucker Kraft, and you are one of the original Tucker Kraft, drum beaters. So I want to hear about what you think can happen with Luke Musgrave in replacement of Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, Luke Musgrave was the guy that they were first high on with the Packers. They drafted him higher. They gave him more reps early on. Just all these types of things. The indicators were that's who the guy they thought was going to be the guy, the two tight ends they drafted, Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. It was funny. I liked both those guys coming out of the draft, and then they went on the same team.
I remember.
But yeah, Musgrave is more when he's explosive, it's different than Kraft. Kraft is a catch and run guy. I mean, he's dunking out guys too when he's healthy, but Musgrave is a speed guy. He is a field stretcher, which I think is really interesting for look how battered the receiver room is right now. But I think it's interesting because I actually think him and Dobbs has synergy. And I actually, I don't know how to feel about how I'm ranking him fantasy wise, where I'm saying like, just, he's not nothing. Like Musgrave has talent and Musgrave has ability. I have clips of him beating Derwin James one-on-one as a rookie. So it's one of these things where it's like, he is a talented player, not a good blocker. That's a big difference with Kraft. But this team likes to run a lot of two tight end stuff. Maybe they just flip this offense a little bit where they're like, okay, now Musgrave is the field stretcher and we use the receivers in the underneath roles, if that makes sense. Dagger concept may be the best example. A seam with a dig behind it. But I just want to give Musgrave a kind of a mention here, just to mention, like, he is talented and they were high on him at one point. He has just battled injuries amongst other things and some inconsistencies as a blocker. But if he has some weeks in the second half of the year, like, don't be totally shocked, I think is my kind of arching point here to kind of like summarize it.
No, it's a really good one because I've been just so skeptical about he can't just come in here and be dropped into Tucker Kraft's role because he's not a blocker. So they'll have to alter the offense a little bit. And I think that will have some serious ramifications on the receivers if they do decide to go, hey, it's Fitzpatrick and then Musgrave, like in order to kind of piece Tucker Kraft together in the aggregate. They're never going to do that, but they're going to try to do it, right? They're going to have a blocker and then a more of a move tight end, a little bit more traditional two tight end look between these two guys, as opposed to just we can be an 11 personnel and Tucker Kraft can either be our best pass catcher or one of our best blockers because he's that good, which is why he was probably one of the best picks you could have made in fantasy period point blank this year as a 9th, 10th round guy. Musgrave will be interesting, and it will be, I think that'll be something we'll break down extensively next week when we see this team. Because like, what are the receivers then there? And when Jaden Reed comes back, what does that mean? Are they ever going to get Matthew Golden featured? Probably not. It just like, there's a lot to consider with this and how does that impact the run game as well? So I'm glad you mentioned him because I do want to leave the light on because he was a really talented receiving prospect. And sometimes tight ends turn it on a little bit later. And just because he kind of got Wally pipped by Tucker Kraft as the later drafted player doesn't mean that he has to be a complete nothing burger.
Yeah, his underlying stats too, and even his play style a little bit, it's not to this extent. I'm not comparing him one-to-one. It's like Mark Andrews. Like, I think that's a fair kind of, if you just want a stylistic comparison. I'm not saying he's going to be Mark Andrews or anything, but this guy was very talented in a loaded tight end class. He was drafted early and had a lot of guys that were fans. It was injury concerns and lack of play time in college because he was hurt was more of the concerns than being an absolute freak. That's what this guy's known for, is being an athletic freak. And I'm just curious. Like, I've seen where games where he has been featured. The Cowboys playoff game a couple of years ago, it comes to mind, that he could have some big performances. He's about 21st in explosive receptions per route and he's 18th in yards per target. So, he's just kind of like that. He's not totally a nothing. And now he's going to be a little bit more featured. So yeah, keep an eye on him.
I like it. All right, we are going to take another quick break. When we come back, Nate mentioned the Raiders offense. When we talk a little Raiders, Broncos, Raiders, Thursday Night Football. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we are back. It's time to talk a little Thursday Night Football. But peek behind the curtain, we were talking about, we were talking high school football in the break, me, Nate, and the producers. This might be a little something akin to high school football. We might see some high school football moments in Raiders, Broncos here. So, Nate, I will say, to start on the Raiders here, because it's funny, the Broncos are the much better team, and I just still do not know what to make of their offense, period.
Oh,
it's an amalgamation of interesting things. No one knows, right? I don't even think they know. The way they call plays, I'm not even sure they know sometimes. But let's start on the Raiders here, because I will say I've been super critical of the Raiders. I remain super critical of a lot of things the Raiders have done. This has been on my radar for a long time now, this Raiders team, and just something's not right here. Things felt a lot more right last week when they got a healthy Brock Bowers back in the mix.
Yeah, it was a great reminder. It's like, oh yeah, that guy that it's like had a historical season as a rookie tight end in the NFL. Like that is already extremely hard to do. Explosive. You see just plays designed for him. It boosts it's just the whole offense felt so much faster. Like, and just that's what it felt like. Yes. And it was like, I mean, the level of competency shot through the roof as well. The O-line still tatters. But that's the thing is like when you have a guy winning guaranteed every single rep, then it becomes all right, how does this defense play against tight ends? I believe the Broncos are pretty good against them, but he's so matchup proof that it doesn't matter. He's going to be the focal point of their offense. And it might not be last week with a hat trick, but man, he's so freaking good that it was a great reminder to be like, when a star like this comes back. Remember when Puka Nacua came back from injury last year? I think it was Thursday night against the Vikings. It was like, oh yeah, you're good. I forgot how much I missed you. Yeah, same kind of thing with Bowers this week.
Oh, 100%. And if you're looking at props and stuff like that, I do think that players that are stars but aren't like Jamar Chase, level, like everybody know they're just a huge, and not that Bowers is not a big name player, but I always feel like from a prop standpoint, these guys are undervalued. I've been talking about this with Rashee Rice for the last few weeks where they just are not accounting for how much volume he was going to get. So if you are looking to prop this game up, I do think Bowers stuff makes a lot of sense here. Just because again, he is going to be somebody that's going to get just so much volume. I do think that obviously from a Trey Tucker perspective, we know what his role is in the offense. Everybody else is kind of, we'll see what it looks like without Jacoby Myers, obviously there. And then in the run game, it was nice to see them actually throw the football to Ashton Genty, not like goof around with some of these depth guys. Let's get Ashton Genty the football in space. Your offensive line struggles to create space. Good to finally see him get some work in the pass game there.
Absolutely. Actually be like it felt like a real offense. Like you said, it hasn't been great. The O-line's just so bad that's why it hasn't been great as well. I was even just looking, I was kind of, again, pulling at threads and trying to figure out, like you said, with the Bowers stuff. And the Broncos defense is outstanding. I don't think I'm sharing any new news here, but a little drop off against tight ends. It's not huge, but just a little. They go from like best in the league at everything to like 7th. Against tight ends. So, but it's just okay. It's just a little bit significance there. Actually, one of the things I bet, because it's short week as well, which is also chaotic. If anyone wants to know, peek behind my process curtain, is that I kind of throw out Thursday games as far as review. Like I kind of just go like, I'll watch it as far as all 22 perspective, but I'm not going I weigh it less than other games just because they're short weeks. Anything can happen. But I have Broncos defense / special teams anytime touchdown at plus 475 because Thursday night it's a defense that wants to just take it to you, and it's not like I go with the Raiders. I'm like, oh yeah, they can just do this. It's like, yeah, I know they got Bowers, but like just getting the ball even there should be a chaotic experience. And also, I like our guy Pat Bryant. The Raiders defense is 27th in success rate against targets to the slot. I think his power slot style is perfect against this type of defense. So his anytime touchdown is, I had it up and I just deleted it. His anytime touchdown is at plus 375 if you're interested in that. And I think his receptions is fairly low if you want to just ride the it's over 2.5
plus odds for the
plus
over.
135. If you just want him to get peppered a few times, it's going to be I think they'll be able to get to some things in this game. The Broncos offense, even if they haven't been great, they can at least do something to bad defenses, but they're trying to get Brian going. And I do think that this is a better game than the Texans defense, just from the standpoint of having plays to run where they can get Brian going because there's plays to use him on, as opposed to, oh my God, it's another third and long. We really need this first down. Oh my God, it's another 3 and out. We're like, oh my God, here we can't pass the ball in a 2-minute drive. All right, let's run quarterback sweep like Taysom, use Bo Nix like Taysom Hill. Like that's where the Broncos offense is right now. The designer plays are really good, but the down to down fluidity of the offense and how cohesive it is has not been very good.
Yeah, the designer plays, like, I mean, getting RJ Harvey in the mix, that's been really good to see, you know, as a receiver. He's caught like 5 receiving touchdowns this season. He's been incredible as a receiving back and been a real weapon. I mean, he caught like a true vertical pass this past game against the Texans. He was one of Bo Nix's 20-plus yard. He attempted, 10, 20-plus yard passes, which is insane. And he completed 2 of them, both for touchdowns. So, yeah, it is a very, I don't know, just it's a weird passing game. Like Troy Franklin has been out producing Cortland Sutton. We're going to talk Cortland Sutton with Joel in the next segment, so I don't want to spoil that too much. But like Troy Franklin has been out producing Cortland Sutton of late, and that to me, it says a little bit about Cortland Sutton, but it says mostly about just like they got to kind of do the designer stuff right now because some of their down to down stuff is felt very, very wonky.
Yeah, and when we say the term designer stuff, it's like those heavy shot play action stuff or the verticality stuff is
what not just screens and stuff.
Yeah, which is also part of it too. But it's just because those plays and talking about just being an offense, just having more ways to attack and cohesive, having a flow to it, is those plays are really kind of top. Well, we're running this for this guy to be open. If he's not open, all right, check it down or something, as opposed to a normal drop back play, which is multiple options are valid. Certain coverages will dictate things, but you can go 1 to 2 to 3. And that's why more mouths can be fed. Just watch, certain offenses like the Bills or something like that, the Rams at times. But in this type of offense, that's why it can feel so only one guy ate this week, because it's like they just run these 6, 7, 8 designer plays. And for a defense, is if you hold on to against those and defend them, they're not going to really put together a lot of cohesive drives and consistent drives right now. So just kind of why it feels that way.
All right, there we go. That is Thursday night, and that is our show with Nate. Nate, I appreciate you doing this, man. We will have you back next week. In the meantime, people should check out Football 301. You have the episode with Robert. You'll have the Week 10 preview with Charles on the feed. And, of course, Nate is writing a mid-season piece as well. So definitely.
We'll have you next week.
I'll be back.
So, that's most importantly, you're back next Tuesday. So that's most important.
I think the people who listen to this show and watch this show get quite enough of me. So that's probably good on that. But make sure you're checking out Nate's mid-season piece as well, because we are reading again in 2025. Never forget that. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, Joel Smyth joins the show for Buzz is Building. We'll get into that right after this. All right, welcome to Buzz is Building with Joel Smyth. Every Wednesday, he joins us for the last block of the show to provide 5 players with buzz that you need to keep an eye on heading into Week 10. Joel, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Talking lots of receivers today, so I feel like you'll like it. I'm excited for today, ready to get going.
Perfect. All right, well, I am ready to strap in and talk some receivers as always. Give us the first player with some buzz building.
We'll stick with Thursday Night Football. I was listening to you and Nate talking about Cortland Sutton, the mishaps there. And you do bring up a really good point in terms of those design plays, in terms of the downfield shots, those screens, a lot of that Broncos offense. Sometimes when I research these things, I kind of go into it thinking I know the answer. And at first, I wasn't too panicked about Cortland Sutton. Sadly, after looking into it, I am more concerned, mainly because of 2 things. I was thinking like maybe it's the cornerback matchups, just different fluke games, that sort of thing. But the 2 things that stuck out to me is, one, how defenses are playing Bo Nix, particularly. Right now, it is a ton of zone coverage. So I feel like thinking back to like CJ Stroud in his second year, those sophomore slumps, that sort of thing. They're playing Bo Nix, third highest in terms of zone coverage against them this year among quarterbacks. We saw it last week given Houston plays very little man coverage, but against Bo Nix, it was down to 10%. He's got the Raiders tomorrow, which is at 13% man coverage, so they're also super low. So that's what Bo Nix has been good against, but more particularly Sutton and Franklin, especially their volume there.
Yeah, and oh man, it's such a great point because Bo Nix was one of the quarterbacks when Nate and I did the show a few weeks ago, where it was highlighting the guys who were more efficient throwing against different types of coverages, and Bo Nix was one of those guys that was very heavily skewed towards man coverage. Zone coverage numbers were kind of a disaster. I'm not sure how much of that is a Bo Nix thing and how much that is also just these wide receivers. Like Courtland Sutton is one of the guys that when I'm charting receivers for reception perception, the gap between his success rate versus man and zone is rather wide. Like he is definitely one of these really like true X receivers on the boundary, on the line of scrimmage, doesn't move around a lot. So it's more important for him to be good against man coverage, right? Like that matters more for him and his individual player success because he's going to get more of those isolated routes. But at the same time, the league is very zone heavy. Teams can zone you up, and that can be a little bit of a problem. And even Franklin, who I'm curious what you think of the Troy Franklin kind of splits as we're showing on the screen right now, out producing Courtland Sutton. Like, he is also one of these guys, like you mentioned, a bit more of a man coverage player. At least in my opinion, I think he's a bit more of a man coverage guy than a zone player, even though he has mostly been their slot guy, which is a little hard to square.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that is one of the major problems with it too. Like I mentioned, both of them have been getting a lot of volume in terms of man coverage when they do play it. Sutton is top 10 in targets per route against man, but Franklin's number 4 right now. So it's not like Sutton is really getting all or dominating because Franklin is also there. And the big thing that sticks out to me with that is that first read target share. When we're looking at last year, Sutton had 31%, one of the best in the NFL. Franklin was down to 13%. And it's been going up and up and up for Franklin, where right now they are dead even, 23% to 22%. But this last month, Franklin's actually been up to 27%. Sutton's been below 20%. So it's not as much of like, Franklin will be good in zone, but once we get those teams with man coverage, then it's going to be Sutton's day. It's like more of that 50-50. So he'll have his weeks. Like he's still going to have those weeks where he has those ceiling games, obviously has tons of touchdown upside, but I don't think it's going to be consistent, especially with teams just playing so much zone coverage against the Broncos.
And I think the bad news that I have for Courtland Sutton managers is that I kind of think, number one, this is just more of who Courtland Sutton is. I view him as more of like a guy that is a good number one. You can get away with him being your number one, but do you necessarily want him to be that full load-bearing receiver? I don't know about that. Just me personally, my evaluation. Again, good number one receiver, but he's not quite that elite or great tier. And I also think even though the Broncos offense is still struggling, they need kind of more players to step up, right? They can't just be what they were last year, was all Courtland Sutton all the time. But that's going to account for some of these games where he has 3 single-digit or single-catch games this year, does Courtland Sutton. Now, one of them was last week where he scored, his one catch was a 30-yard touchdown. That's great, but I think that does lower his floor on a weekly basis. So this is one to definitely monitor. I'm glad you brought this one up. And my last point about this, and Nate and I have been talking about Pat Bryant forever now, but he can be an answer against zone coverage. I do think at some point they're going to want him to get ramped up a little bit more. Maybe it is next season, but as that big slot receiver, he could be more of an answer against zone coverage. So just continue to monitor him as maybe like a second half of the season rookie breakout player. But let's stick at wide receiver here. Let's get to your second player with some buzz.
We're going to go Rashid Shaheed. I was preparing early for this one, but it was not for Shaheed. I was actually going to talk about Torrey Horton. I was excited to talk about Torrey Horton in this offense and no Cooper Kupp. And I compared him on Monday morning to Shaheed in this offense, in this Kubiak offense. And they go out and trade for Shaheed. So I already had the numbers planned and everything for Shaheed to talk about him. But he only had 6 games last year when he played in this Kubiak offense because of that injury. But up until that point, number 1 in the NFL in air yards. His target share in general was pretty solid. And this is just a way better version of that New Orleans offense last year with Sam Darnold. His yards per attempt right now, best from the decade. They're playing a ton under center, number 1 in the NFL. They're number 1 explosive plays off those play action. In general, just it it's perfect for Shaheed. Where when we're looking at the screen, like yards per route last year was 27th. He was the wide receiver 22. It was volatile. He definitely had some floor games, but when he does have those ceiling games, it's huge.
Yeah, he's going to have monster weeks here. And I do think that Torrey Horton will still be involved, definitely from a fantasy standpoint. This decreases the odds that he's going to be that second half rookie receiver that you need because Shaheed knows the system. He's got a clear role here to just walk right into. But like, where do you think Rashid Shaheed's going to end up being in kind of your rest of season, weekly rankings? Like, is he somebody we can rely on to get 6 to 7 to 8 targets a game, or do you think you're going to be kind of relying on more of those big plays?
I think a mix of both. A lot depends on Cooper Kupp and that injury, I would say, but I think he can still get like 7 targets and be good, like be a good flex on 7 targets. And some of it is more of the matchup. Like I was pointing out last week with the game, they played Washington. Their pass defense has kind of been up and down, but they've allowed a lot of explosive plays. In Seattle, number 2 entering the week, and now they moved up to number 1 because they got that defense and torched them in terms of those chunk plays. So I feel like that's where you can take advantage. The next 2 games, a little bit tougher in that. The Cardinals top 10 against explosive passes, Rams top 5. But after that, like a game against the Titans, where maybe most teams you're kind of worried about like the blowout factor. But I think that in that matchup, they can blow them out partially because Shaheed has those 2 big plays in the first half or something like that.
And last thing with Rashid Shaheed that I think we haven't maybe talked about enough on this show since the trade happened, I do think a part of why they went out and got Rashid Shaheed is to get more too high looks, right? They want to get a safety out of the box. They they do want to open things up for the run game. At some point they're going to need to be a better run team, and because they throw out of base so much, like that's great, and it's why they've been the most efficient passing team in the NFL. Is because they get a bunch of base defense looks because they play these heavy personnel packages we were talking about earlier. But at the same time, if they can spread the field, add more receiving options, that's going to create more rushing lanes. So if you're hoping for that second half of the season, Kenneth Walker, get him out of the coping corner, or you're a Zach Charbonnet sicko, maybe Shaheed can help in that regard. Joel, what do you think about that theory?
I love that. Yeah, I haven't thought about that. I don't want to get my hopes up, but I do love you bringing that up, especially and from an NFL perspective. I do like this trade for Seattle in general, like the points you just brought up. But just as an overall receiver, the Saints traded a 4th-round pick for like Valet this offseason, and he obviously wasn't doing too much behind Shaheed. And then they trade Shaheed for basically the same amount. So I like it from an NFL perspective too.
No question. Okay, let's stick in the trades here for your third player with some buzz.
It's going to be Jakobi Meyers, and a lot of it just going back to Brian Thomas Jr. I think I've lost all of my hope on Brian Thomas Jr. I've tried to stay positive, try to stay hopeful. At least he's had his moments, but after the injury last week, after not doing the greatest up until that injury with no Travis Hunter, then they trade for Jakobi Meyers. There is not much to be excited about. So when we're looking at Brian Thomas Jr. real quick, his short area targets have gone way down this year. And I feel like some people miss that part because we don't think of Brian Thomas Jr. as like a screen guy. But last year he had a lot of screens. It was like 18, 17 screens. Yeah. This year he's got 1. In terms of his like short area targets, under 5 yards, like 5 yards or under, he's 52nd among receivers, not even getting 2 a game. So it's just all of those downfield shots, those intermediate shots, which are good, but like the chemistry is not really there and the volume isn't there on top of it. So it makes it hard to trust, especially when you're bringing in Jakobi. Like maybe with no Strange and no Hunter, he gets some of those short targets, and I don't really think that's happening anymore.
It's such a great point about the screens. He averaged 10 yards per target on screens last year, Brian Thomas. I know that because I said that stat 1,000 times in the offseason because Liam Cohen was such a good screen designer last year in Tampa Bay. Yeah. You think, okay, Brian Thomas is going to get that. But I think because of the problems that he's shown this year, going over the middle, playing against zone coverage, and dropping the football in those scenarios, they've had to take so much off of his menu. I think they probably wanted to put a lot on him. And then as he's underperformed, you mentioned like the lack of short targets. To me, Joel, that's because they've had to stick him at X receiver and run a very vertical straight line route tree, goes, curls, outs. And that's just not the best for fantasy, right? Especially with a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
You want that move around guy. He's been really good targeting the slot over the course of his career, has Trevor Lawrence. And now you've got two guys. Put Travis Hunter aside, we'll see when he comes back. But like right now, you've got Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington, who are two slot flanker types. Like these guys to me are going to be the load bearing players for the next few weeks. Real quick, what do you think is going to happen with this receiver room when Travis Hunter gets back? Because to me, I was like, oh, Hunter's going to come back if they make a playoff run. But it sounds like Ian Rappaport says he's going to miss the next 3 weeks for sure, but he could be back shortly after. Can you piece together what this receiver room looks like if we have Myers, Parker Washington, BTJ, and Travis Hunter? Like, what does that look like?
I don't think I could accurately. I think they would keep Travis Hunter in the slot would be my first guess in terms of even long-term, like who's most important to this team and the role that's been a little bit more limited up until these last couple of weeks. Like keep him inside where he's comfortable and then have Jacoby Myers go outside. That'd be my best guess, but it does make it difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually think that makes a lot of sense. And it lines up with what Liam Cohen said today, that they're going to start Jacoby Myers outside because it's easier to learn that position in this offense because it's less of the move around stuff. Okay, we got two more guys to get through here. Let's hit your fourth player that's got some buzz.
It's going to be Romeo Doubs. I feel like you're a fan, aren't you, Matt Harmon, of Doubs?
Yes, I have really been impressed with him this season. He has really, really grown on me.
All right, that's good to hear then. That's good to hear before I say all this positive stuff about him. I like him. Not the greatest matchup this week, especially now. Like maybe DeJean moves outside, so like Philly, a little tougher matchup there. But when we're looking at this team, like Tucker Kraft sadly goes down. I love that man. And then you don't have Matthew Golden, Wicks is hurt, Jaden Reed's hurt. Like everybody's hurt, all their wide receiver twos. So does he not become a wide receiver 2 anymore? He had that 3-touchdown game in week 4, and I know that's a 3-touchdown game, but he hasn't had one since. So when we're actually looking at like the expected touchdowns, he's right at it. So he's not necessarily overperforming. And since that week 4 game, top 13th in target share, 13th in production overall. So those numbers have been there. The air yards have been there. The target share is there. And that main thing is that red zone target share. Like when he had that really good touchdown season a couple of years ago, when he had 8 touchdowns, I think, a lot of that was because of that red zone work. Tucker Kraft was leading this team at 32%, Doubs at 27%, and nobody else was even close to those two.
I love it. Yeah, as we're trying to figure out, okay, how did the Packers replace Tucker Kraft? Is it going to be with more 12 personnel? Fitzpatrick and then, Luke Musgrave. How does that work together? Well, who's going to be the wide receiver 2? Is it going to be more of a deep guy like Christian Watson? Or are they going to try to get one of the more layup guys? The one guy who's never leaving the field is Romeo. Like he's going to be out there. So I love to hear that he's also kind of a positive regression candidate because of those touchdowns. He's definitely somebody that I think is an underrated fantasy starter right now as a wide receiver 3 flex play, and maybe even more than that if the season continues to go the way it is. All right, we have one more player to get to here, a player that's actually on a bye right now.
Yeah, I just want to touch real quickly on Chase Brown. There's been 2 pros in this new offense with Flacco. The big thing right now actually is just Pirine going down to injury. He's playing a lot more and he's getting all of that work. So if he can get that receiving volume, that's the key there. But with Flacco under center, it's the increased passing volume and then the rushing efficiency. He is number 1 in the entire NFL in yards per carry since Flacco took over. I was shocked to see that. It hasn't been a ton of work, like 45 carries, but compared to being basically dead last to number 1 in the NFL, I'll take that. It's just a different offense in general with Flacco in there. And we saw that 14 target game without Pirine. Not that it's going to be 14 targets every week, but I think it does help him a lot, especially with that upcoming schedule. Like we get Baltimore twice for Chase Brown, 32nd against receiving running backs. So it's one of those, they haven't been good against running backs, but it's like, they're Baltimore. Can the Bengals keep up with that offense? It's going to be a lot less rushing, but that is where you can attack them, is in that receiving running backs. He gets Miami in the playoffs as well. So it helps a lot when you can get that receiving volume, especially if Pirine misses more time.
Love it. That's a great call. And I am mysteriously, suspiciously, perhaps over-invested in Chase Brown in one of my guillotine leagues. So I'm hoping I can survive this week and exploit all of that goodness that you were talking about here going forward once he comes off that bye. All right, that's going to do it for Buzz's Building. Joel, shout out to you. Great stuff this week. Really enjoyed all of the topics. And that is going to do it for us today on the show. Thanks again to Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season. And don't forget to check out Toyota's game day giveaways for your chance to win. Tomorrow, We'll be right back here, okay? Live on YouTube, 5 p.m. Eastern with Justin Boone to preview everything you need to know from Week 10. Until then, we are out.